3 minutes to go. Russell Sorensen. I see your name on the screen, Russ. Are you here?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm just driving home from Ogden, so I'm just joining in on audio.
Really? Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I just finished tuning the Utah Symphony as a performance here tonight, and just turned me loose. So
Sounds like you're still busy as ever, huh?
yeah,
Wow, that's good to be busy. How's everyone in your family?
good. My brother Doug wanted to join tonight, but
Oh.
he's involved with the youth in the ward. So
Okay.
Are you recording this?
Yes.
And is it possible to view it later? Or
I wouldn't know why not. I'm not an expert with Zoom. The more we use it, the more we understand it, but
Yeah.
I'm not an expert. We are recording it though.
well, good. Well, you have an archive anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll let folks know how you can access that after we figure it out, I guess.
Okay.
Half a minute away. Okay. Sean Thornton coming to us with 15 seconds left. Are we going to start this at 7? We can bring up the screen however we do that. Let's see. So I hit share screen. No. Chris is with us. Okay, is that going to work? Okay, I've just pulled up our header on this. Can everyone see it? Florida ICW Gulf. Let's see. Russell, it looks like you're still muted, although we've already spoken. And Sean, if you can unmute. Nelson George, unmute. Okay.
Hello.
Austin, hi, I'm Todd.
Hey, Todd.
I can hear you. Just getting people checking in here. We might wait another minute before we get started. But it's a nice way to beat the cold is to go down to St. Pete, although it's been getting fairly cold there too. We had a mix of weather for our trip. Basically we had maybe a day in the 70s, but mostly mid 60s. There's Melanie. Hi, Mel. Okay.
Well, Todd, my wife says she's not going on another sailing trip unless it's warm.
Yeah, I think
Because the last few we've done it's been really cold. Of course, we went in February one time, but the time we went in May, it rained the whole time in California. So I think we're jinxed.
I would agree. It'd be nice to go when it's warm. I know we did do the Caribbean trip to St. Martin, and we drove up to the north end of Anguilla, I think. White sand beaches, beautiful place. But I had to get in the water or or else I would have perished. It was so hot there.
Wow.
But it was nice. I mean, I stayed in the water for I don't know how long snorkeling, and I sure enjoyed that. We had to get an umbrella to be under, or else it would have burned us pretty good. Well, why don't we go ahead and reward those that have gotten here early, and we'll start our Florida ICW Gulf of Mexico trip. That was January 13th through the 17th. And I see Chris is with us. Chris Julian was one of our crew members, and we may have other people later on. But just by way of introduction, although I don't see them yet, we had 8 crew on a Fontaine Peugeot 42. A lot of elbow room with just 8 people. Everybody had a stateroom. There was a private head in each stateroom. I thought a comfortable boat. Yeah, and so anyhow, our crew was my wife Louise, we had Ori and Chris, we had Terrence and Laurel, and we had Larry and Linda, and it was a fun group, and they don't disappoint me as far as the friendship quotient. It's always fun. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and launch this thing and see if I can make this work.
Start from the beginning.
From start. From start. I've just been there. I'm trying to go forward. Okay. Makes the page a little bigger, maybe. Okay, so our day one, we started from a place called Vinoy Marina in St. Petersburg or St. Pete. The cool thing that we wanted to try out that actually I thought turned out pretty good was we had a direct flight from the Provo airport on Allegiant to St. Petersburg, Clearwater, nonstop. And the price was decent. And I thought they did a real good job. Yeah, so it was a comfortable flight. On our flight, we actually, for Louise and I, we had a seat in between us that was open, and we had a full row of seats in front and a full row in back that were open. So people could kind of move around if they needed to stretch out. I kind of like that. I don't like shoulder to shoulder stuff, but it was a comfortable flight. If you guys have any questions as we go along with this, just jump right in. You'll have to unmute to get my attention or wave your hands or something, and we'll stop and try and answer any questions that you might have. But I do appreciate you being here. Cottage meetings are fun. I wish we had our seminars. We might have more people on a cold night like tonight. It's nice to be in our own home though. So welcome, and let's try and get warm by sailing around the west coast of Florida. Kind of an impressive marina. I thought it was newer. It looked in good repair. A lot of big, expensive boats in here at Vinoy. I can't really remember how long it took us to get from the airport to the boat, but Waypoint's charter for the outfit that we dealt with, and they let us sleep the first night on the boat, which was really handy. We could provision that night so that we could leave early in the morning, because the checkout usually takes longer than you want it to, but we could get on our way a little bit sooner. So it was a beautiful morning. A lot of people in Florida like to be out with their dogs, walking, running, bicycling. It's just a good ambiance to be there. This is the first night we were there, walked across the street to the Vinoy Hotel and had a patio dinner, which was really nice. We kind of shut down the restaurant. It was getting late. But it seemed like all the service people, wherever we went in Florida, were very nice and friendly, very accommodating, very, very professional folks. But we were the last crew, and they fed us well. I don't think we ever had a bad evening meal. That was always kind of the highlight of the day. If we could find a restaurant, we'd sit around the table and visit and have some excellent, usually seafood, to each his own. This was the interior, one of the suites. After the first night, we figured out pretty quick that we needed a second blanket on the bed, and the second blanket did it for us, even though it got a little chilly out. But I thought the accommodations were very comfortable, clean, just easy to navigate. We were on a 42-foot Fontaine Peugeot called Soraya. And the guy liked mermaids. They were on his pillows and everything like that. But evidently he really enjoyed this boat. And I think we were lucky to get a nice clean boat that didn't have any real problems to speak of. Just a different view. It's our trusty dinghy hanging off the davits in the back. Of course, shore power, water access, and easy walking distance across the street. And I don't know if you can see my cursor moving around there. Got it up in the sky now. I may try and point out some things with the cursor and to show you where we were. I think this was probably the car garage, the top of the car garage where the patio was. It was either here or somewhere over in here. So not too far away. We're going through the boat now as a checkout. The only thing that gave us a little bit of grief was the square top of the mainsail. It's a square topper, and the battens are quite stiff. It's hard to get that top one attached to the halyard car as you take it up, but it can be done. And I think everybody chipped in to rig up a pretty ingenious fix for this. And they were pretty much up. The mainsail is huge on this boat. Lazy jacks, stack packs, full batten. It's a nice performing sail. And now we're taking it back down. There's Terrence in the middle. Didn't take long to figure out a very efficient way of getting the sail up and then back down, which was handy before we left the marina. We kind of knew what we were doing with our mainsail. Chris loves that little dinghy. He wanted to take it out, which I think is actually a very smart thing to do. In the past, on some of our charters, we accept the company's word that everything works on the dinghy, and it usually doesn't. We had a hard time getting the engine started on this, but once it was started, it was reliable. And I don't know what that's all about, but it was a nice dinghy. And Chris was just taking it for a test drive to see how it worked. And we worked this thing quite a bit. It was great to have it on the ICW. We did a lot of exploring, getting back and forth. So here we're just gonna take it out of the slip. You don't see anybody else around because they're all on the four corners of the boat to make sure we don't bump into anything. But that didn't happen. I ran aground right away with it. Coming out of the slip, I had problems feeling when I had power with my starboard engine, so that when I gave it forward starboard engine, I didn't have anything. I couldn't feel it in the throttle. So we went forward and got stuck in some soft mud. We finally got her out, and away we go. We're going out the Vinoy Marina here and out into Tampa Bay. The not only the Tampa Bay, but the ICW on the West Coast and the Gulf of Mexico has a lot of shallow water. So before we left, we asked a few people if they would always be at the helm when we're underway, so that we can look at the chart plotter to see if we're in skinny water. Because sometimes people will be out looking straight ahead of the boat to look at call regs markers to make sure we're where we should be, and other people need to be looking at the chart plotter to see how deep the water is, so we don't run aground. So we had a lot of interesting navigation work at the helm as we went on our way. And I'm pretty sure this is a range marker. I didn't have time to locate the other range to see, and I'm pretty sure it was bringing us into Vinoy, but I'm not sure where that was. But we can see the stack of red squares, usually indicating a range marker. And by the looks of the small wavelets on the water, we're starting to pick up some wind. Our first day was decent out there, and then we started getting gale warnings and small craft advisories. So we kept it close here to the weather. We did have some strong weather, but nothing really serious. Okay, so now we're on our way out into Tampa Bay, heading towards the Gulf of Mexico, on a very impressive bridge, the Sunshine Skyline Bridge, I believe it's called. This is a toll bridge. Whenever you're going across bridges where you're unfamiliar with them, you've never been across them before, have dollar bills, cash ready and change to put in a toll booth. We happened to not have that ready for this trip. After the trip, we went across this bridge and didn't have money ready, and so we're expecting to get a citation in the mail from St. Pete telling us that we ran the toll bridge. We had, as you can see in the back of the boat, 2 cases of water. And we all know this, it's always a good idea to write your name on the water bottle so that you can prolong the use of your water bottle instead of forgetting where you put it and then pull out a new one. But we ran a little bit short of water, and we had to go on a recon mission to find more water at some point. So it's always a good idea to bring along a felt pen and write everybody's name on your bottle until it's completely empty, and then dispose of it properly. Just another perspective of the Skyway Bridge to give you an idea how huge this thing is. This is the end of our day's journey. This place has at least 2 names. There's 2 restaurants. The names of the restaurants are different. So it gets a little different when you're trying to explain where you've gone to. Putting this together, I was kind of intrigued by the fact that I had little dust particles all over the lens of my camera. I only had it on about 3 shots. But as I'm looking at it here, are birds. There must have been quite a few birds in the air, but it just looked like bugs or something on the screen of the camera. Fun place to walk around. It had a lot of dock space. When I phoned down here to try and secure a transient slip for the night for this 42 cat, they said they didn't have anything big enough. And that went for every other marina we tried to go into. I was kind of surprised. No room at the inn. So we anchored out everywhere, which was fine. But I just thought it's interesting for a place that caters so much to the boating traffic. They can't accommodate a 42-foot cat. What I've done here is take a screenshot of our trip down from Vinoy, if I can get my cursor out here. So I started our route right here with Navionics, but really right up in here is where Vinoy is. So I didn't feel comfortable playing with the Navionics until we got well underway under the sun. Well, until we got out into the bay and going. But this is the Sunshine Bridge here. Our yellow line comes back up the Manatee River to Palmetto, and that's where we stopped. But this is showing us our route down to our the place where we spent the night down here in Palmetto at, I think it was called the Regatta Point Marina. To make it easier, I suppose we could have done it all at once. We had 2 elderly folks with us. That was very difficult for them to get in and out of the outboard. So we split it up into 2 shuttles from the boat into the marina, and that seemed to work just fine. And Chris was always willing to do that. And you can see more birds up here in the air. I thought those were bugs on my camera lens. This is a funny little place. I think it's like a honeymoon cottage that people can rent out for the weekend or a week and just hang out, get away from people. Little vacation rental. Just sits on the water. I don't think you take it out. It's a permanent fixture there. Okay, so we've come ashore for our evening meal in the restaurant. Yeah, just very enjoyable. We're sharing stories, talking about stuff, and had a great meal. A lot of people really like the seafood, which is understandable. Now tell me that doesn't look like bugs on your camera screen. Those are just birds flying around at night. We did notice on the ICW that a lot of porches were covered with huge screen covered enclosed porches, but I don't recall ever feeling a bug. And with this many birds, you'd think that they'd keep bugs kind of at bay, but I'm sure they have their problems just like we do. So the sun's going down. Kind of an interesting shot. The clouds are illuminated, I'm sure, by St. Petersburg. But a real interesting thing. We get the same phenomenon here on when we're sailing on Utah Lake. We can look towards Salt Lake, and if there's clouds, we'll see this reflection from the city on the base of the clouds. It's called loom. So if you're out sailing on the ocean at night and you want to find your way, you might be lucky enough to detect loom on the horizon and go to a large city or something. Okay, so that this night was the bounciest I've had in a long time in a big cat. We were getting thrown around, but it was still comfortable in that 42, but it was quite bouncy. A few people commented on how bouncy it was. So we're going to start on day 2. We have to come back out of the Manatee River and we're going to be heading out into the Gulf and see what that's like. And the winds were starting to pick up. So we had, of course, bigger swells because we were outside the barrier islands that protect the ICW. But it wasn't anything terrible. This is kind of an interesting thing. And with some of you that I've discussed anchoring techniques, tricks, whatever you want to call it. As I get older, I'm getting lazier and I like to do my anchor watch from inside my sleeping bag. And you can do that with the Navionics. You just let it run all night and the yellow breadcrumb trail is going to trace where the boat has swung. And so I'm pretty sure our boat was up here. No, I'm sorry. The red dot is the boat. Up here is the anchor. So the boat's going to swing back and forth as the wind presents itself to each side of the boat. If it goes this way, we're in trouble because then it's dragging. But if it stays in the same basic plane of trajectory back and forth, our anchor is holding. And it's actually a more accurate way of telling if your boat is moved at night than having to get out of your warm sleeping bag, put your night gear on, go up top and start looking at other landmarks and stuff. So for what it's worth, I really enjoy that type of an anchor watch. This is exactly where we were last night. Day 1 night, we're looking back at the restaurant. Here is a restaurant, and back in here, the teal colored roof is a restaurant. And so we would dinghy in here. There's actually some kind of a rock. I'm glad we had daylight when we went in. Terrence told me that they found a rock accidentally. It's well marked, but it's right in the entryway to go in here. I don't know why they don't remove it, but you can run aground there. So if you were coming in this place at night, although it is well marked, there's a chance that you might bump into it. So now we're coming back out the Manatee River, and here are all of our helpers watching for not only shallow areas off the side of the boat, but on the chart plotter to make sure we don't run aground. And we continue out the Manatee River. So we're just coming in off the Gulf of Mexico now. We've been out about 5 miles, and we're coming back in to go in between 2 barrier reefs. I'm sorry, yeah, 2 barrier islands. And the breaking waves that you see here are breaking because it's shallow. So that's really not too far away. We have shallow water on both sides of us, and we're heading for a drawbridge to get inside. And everybody's keeping an eye out, not only on the bow of the boat, but on the corners and on our chart plotter. And we're trying to keep the boat right in the middle. So I think we're probably in about 17 feet of water here. And where you see the waves is about 1 foot. And let's see if we can roll the footage here. The wind is at our back. And we're kind of being careful, and not going real fast towards the drawbridge right here. The drawbridge, you just barely heard the drawbridge operator. They were asking him what the water depth is right now, just to play it safe. And he says, you'll have to look at the sign. And he was a little gruff about it. And we kind of looked at each other and, oh, okay. This being, at least for me, the first time I've gone through a drawbridge in Florida waters and shoal waters. He didn't seem too helpful. And we continue to come in closer and we can see more breaking waves. There's a green marker, quite helpful. And Terrence is on the bow looking for shallow water in front. And you can see the beach up here. When we get in towards the drawbridge, we're actually pretty close to land, and it gives you the heebie-jeebies if you haven't been through there before. Okay, so we're getting close to the bridge now, and keep an eye out for water depths indicated on the sign. So it looks like we're in about 18 feet of water. I'm going to run this again because the sign is right in the bottom right-hand corner. You have to look quick to see it. And you can also hear the siren that they play when they start to raise and lower the bridge. It was interesting to listen to the personalities of all the drawbridge operators. They were all so different. Some extremely humble and helpful, and others were, just putting in another day. So we've cleared the drawbridge. We're kind of coming around the bend for our next anchorage, which is called Longboat Harbor or Longboat Key. And we just came from this slot right here, and we're coming around the bend. Very scenic little place to spend the night. We really enjoyed the scenery, but what we weren't ready for was all the junk on the bottom of the harbor bed. Our first time dropping anchor, we pulled up an abandoned dinghy anchor along with other stuff. And I guess we just assumed that was probably an isolated incident. So we cleaned it off and we tried anchoring again. Just didn't think it would be quite that tough. So I think right now what we're trying to do is find our second attempt at anchoring before we're a wee bit closer to where I'm moving my cursor up in here, which was closer to the two restaurants. Number one and number two is more on the beach. We wanted to be a little bit closer in, but because of the fouling that our anchor took, we decided to drop back and try anchoring a little bit further away from shore. And here we are, we finally managed to do that. And let's see, somewhere in here we fixed the obligatory cashew chicken curry. Yeah, and it turned out okay. So that night, actually, we kind of got chased off the beach from having dinner. There was a small craft warning that was, word of mouth from table to table. We didn't want to linger too long. We wanted to get back to the boat and make sure we were hunkered down for strong winds. So we got back to the boat, and I slept well. I don't know about anybody else, but slept like a baby. And in the morning, we had to figure out what we were going to do. I'm pretty sure that's Chris and Ori heading in. We called it a recon to find out where to get more water. If we were going to get pasted by gale force winds, we wanted to make sure that we were provisioned, because we didn't want to have to be going out in strong winds to get fresh water if we happen to run out. So we're going to shore on a recon mission to see where we can pick up more water. And this would be towards the restaurants. This is where we had our restaurant experience last night. And this is a bigger restaurant. We didn't go over there. Very nice docks and piers. If you bring your boat in, they're made for motorboats, so we weren't sure if we would be welcome with that big cat. It would have to be out on the end, but you can come in and tie up your boat, go into the restaurant for dinner, and then go back home afterwards. Okay, another screenshot. This is where we anchored out in Longboat Key. You can see that it's not too deep in here. In fact, right in here, our dinghy ran aground. So that green stuff is pretty skinny. We finally made it over to these are ICW markers here, and we stayed. Can't remember if we were inside or outside, because the motorboats that would come through here are basically full throttle, and it was kind of dangerous. If you had one of those hot rods coming through, it would swamp your dinghy. They weren't very kind that way. In fact, I think they thought that the dinghies were in their way, that this was their space, and I'm not sure. Anyhow, so this breadcrumb trail is showing us where we went to find our water. These are interesting cuts, if you will. And they're kind of like streets. And they're lined with homes and docks. And it's really interesting to go exploring up and down these. It would take a lifetime to go up and down all of them, but they certainly are intriguing. This is a split screen on, again, our route to get the water, and a close-up of where we ended up for the night. You can see we're in nearly 13 feet of water here that goes pretty quick to 1 foot. And this is where we came in. This is the restaurant here and another restaurant here. They're docks. And this is where we were at night. Okay, so now that we've got our intel on where to find water, we're using our handheld navionics again to wend our way through these very interesting, I'm going to call them canals. They'll probably call it something else, to pick up a case or two of water. But here's an instance of that back porch. It's totally covered in bug screen. So they've got to have some pretty good bugs here. Signs all along here. I think this yellow one is be careful of manatees. I don't think there is such a thing as a manatee. I never saw one. There's just signs everywhere. I don't think they exist. Beautiful. Every bit of property is unique and different. Just to see how people carve their little niche out of the mangroves and the jungles and the skinny water. Okay, we finally arrived at our destination. They were very kind to help us out of the dinghy. There's bait over here, and here's the marina store. They do maintenance and stuff like that. Really nice, clean store. Didn't have a lot, but they had what we needed. 2 thumbs up from Chris. Squirt. Can you guys find that anywhere else in the world except here in the mangroves and the snake-infested backcountry of Florida? We got Chris's squirt. Okay, see, they've got another sign. Manatees. They're not out there. This is a shrimp thing. They had a young man come up with his father. He wanted to get some shrimp to go fishing. He was just so excited to get a pail full of shrimp. Just fun to hear somebody that excited to go fishing. Okay, so this is a video, and we're going to go motoring this way past one of these streets I was telling you about. And the street runs diagonally back the way the cursor is going. Let's see if we can check that out. Beautiful homes. Back in there, they have all their access. Take them down here and see if that just goes on back in and back in. Only imagine what happens when you get a storm surge. Okay, so Terrence was just telling Louise, who's pointing out a hot rod guy going up the ICW. He said, "Better hold on, we're going to get a wave," and we did. I got pretty good soaking once. Everything's marked well. Nice bright markers. So we've got a green here, and way in the distance you can see our red over here. And I think that might be another green. Anyhow, we're coming back into our anchorage, which is right about over in here with our much needed supplies. Okay, that evening we went ashore for dinner. It was starting to get a little chilly. The front was going to come through. The winds were picking up. So we weren't in a super hurry, but we didn't want to stay behind and wait for those strong winds to hit before we could shuttle everybody back to the mother ship. But our waitress back here, she was an incredible salesman. This was the best restaurant in the world with the best service, and she convinced us all. It was good. I can't fault her for that. This is Ori's fish. I'm going to do after first and then before. After and before. A lot of fun stuff. I think Chris had some kind of a a painkiller without the painkiller in it. Just lots of fruit. Fun stuff. They did some fun stuff with food. Hail, hail, the gang is all here. That's fun. These are just a fun crew, a wonderful crew to be with. I hope you'll always have somebody as wonderful as we had on this trip. We had mostly a full moon. Most of the night we had good moonlight. Just a typical Florida evening sunset, some a little more jazzy than others. Okay, so again, this is our anchor drag. This is where we hooked the dinghy anchor. We found out that we weren't holding, so we pulled our anchor line back up. We took all the junk off of it and then came back here, and this is where we held for the night. Okay. Yeah, it's a good thing we're doing this sooner rather than later, because I'm still getting kind of foggy on what we did. I know that we spent 2 nights in Longboat Key because of the possibility of gale force winds. But obviously this is the next day or the day after the next day, we're heading out into another drawbridge. We had 2 drawbridges that were fairly close together, so we had to make them in succession because they opened at I think it's 1/4 and 1/4 till the hour, and we weren't sure. And again, I think it might be left up to the discretion of the drawbridge operator, although I suppose he could get in trouble, that he has a protocol to adhere to. But it might have been this gentleman here. We were just pedal to the metal, doing about 9 knots, trying to make it on time. And it looked like we were going to be 1 to 2 minutes late. We didn't really beg him on bended knee or anything, but it was such a kind gesture. He went ahead, and as we got close enough, opened the drawbridge and we went through. We had another cat to go through with us. And this is a fairly lengthy, I think this is drawbridge number 2. Note that there are, and I'm sure there's official names for them, but there's timbers to keep you from running your boat into concrete, which is not good, but these timbers will guide you through. A lot of times there will be a rip current or a sideways current that makes it really interesting. As soon as you get right between these pylons, you kind of get buffeted. You can get thrown one way or the other. So we had people keeping an eye on each corner of the boat as we went through the drawbridge area. When I was doing the navigation work on this, I looked at these bridges, and I was looking for a name in the bridge, and a lot of them were called Basque, Basque, I believe. That's the type, the style of bridge that we have. There's a big cantilever weight on the end, so that it doesn't take much energy to open the drawbridge or bring it back down. But the bridges like this one are referred to as a basque. And on the lower right, you can see the water depth at about 18. And away we go. And you probably recognize this, the Sunshine Skyline Bridge, and our water is starting to get a little rougher from those gale force winds starting to pick up. We get a lot of mic noise. Sometimes it's fun getting thrown around, but sometimes it's not too. Okay, so as we're heading back, now we have to deal with, usually always is the case, having too much food. So whereas maybe going down, we're conserving a little bit, now we want to get rid of as much as we can. And we put a lot of food out on the countertop for people to partake in. We've got refried beans on the stove and taco fixings to build tacos out of. I think all of our food is really delicious. We're out on the back trying to put a dent in all the food. Starting to get a little cold now. Always have the obligatory rainbow shot. It's always beautiful, and you can see some of the rain showers coming through. It is starting to chill out a little bit. Okay. Terracea Harbor. Ori picked this one out. It was close to the Manatee River, but it looked like it was a little more sheltered than what we had originally planned for because of the strong winds coming. This is actually a breadcrumb trail going from Terracea back out underneath the bridge and back to Vinoy. But in this area here, Ori and Chris, being our resident fishermen, decided that they would put some stuff in the water, some of those shrimp that they got back in Longboat Key, and had a pretty good strike. It didn't take too long, and I'm pretty sure it was Ori was fighting something and came up, and it's a shark, lemon shark. And so we were able to let that one go and threw the line back in and caught another lemon shark. And we thought, probably not a good idea to go swimming in this area. Caught a few other things too, but yeah, so we pulled up anchor and we're heading back to Vinoy. And we're back in Vinoy. All tied up. We're getting ready to clean the boat. And of course, the last day is melancholy. You're going home, no more sailing for a while. And I can only wonder what's going through Chris's mind here. I wonder if he's thinking of chasing stars. That's got to be hard. Sorry, buddy. Our friend, the dinghy. The davits worked really well. The raising and lowering system worked really well. The engine was fine. The only thing that was wanting was a oarlock nut so that we could maybe paddle around if we wanted to, but it worked out just fine. And so we're cleaning out stuff. All the food's coming out. Getting linen folded, cleaning countertops, winding down, getting ready for the checkout captain to come on board. More contemplative moments, I'm thinking. And here's our crew. Maybe one of the, if you've got to find fault with something, it was that the boat wasn't easy to get on and off of. That's why Louise is staying on there. It was a bit of a chore. You had to have a step, about a 3-step platform, and then put a gangplank on top of that, which then went over the lifelines of the boat. So a bit of a jury rig thing, a little scary. Most people did that gangplank on their hands and knees because it was a long fall if you went in between the boat and the dock. But here we are, getting ready to call Uber and take us either to a room for that night or back to the airport. And here we're waiting for our rides. I went across the street and took a photo, and so we're waiting for Uber to come along. And I guess that's all I have to say about that. Any questions? I'm happy to try and answer them. It looks like we've got some of our crew with us that we can direct questions to them if you have them. I suppose we could go into costs and mileage and logistics. If that interests you, I could look into it, but I don't have it at my fingertips right now. So open mic time, you guys, whatever you'd like to ask.
Tell me how you did the food for this trip, Todd. Did you have a menu before you went?
We did, and Louisa went to great lengths to put something together. We did ask for special dietary needs, which is in a group, you're always going to have that. But it actually went surprisingly well. We didn't have anybody concerned about food. The food service that we used, I thought Instacart went really well. It hasn't always gone that way, but I would imagine that depends on the store that you're dealing with. But everything went really smooth. It was all delivered, I think actually the night before. It was on the boat, which was slick. All we had to do was sort of unload things and inventory it and then put it back so we knew where it was, so we could access it when we're out on the water. Oh, Ori did all that. Ori is also capable in anything, really. What I like to do on this was appoint captains, and I'm not sure. I think we must have got this in the BVIs when who was it down there? Anyhow, they advised us to appoint a dinghy captain because dinghies get stolen so often down in the BVIs. And our captain for that was Jay Adams, and he took his captaincy quite serious, which is good because we never had to worry about the dinghy being stolen or walking off or anything like that, or being lost. One of Jay's great ideas, among many, is just to drop some old coconut in the bottom of your dinghy. Nobody else is going to steal it. Nobody wants an old coconut from the beach. But all the dinghies tend to look alike, especially if you've ever been on a dinghy dock in the Caribbean. So an easy way to find your dinghy right off is to look inside for a coconut that's hanging out. But I expanded on the idea of a dinghy captain, and appointed a galley captain, which was Ori, so he knew where everything was. We had a head captain, and I think Ori might have taken that on too. He was multitasking so that we could know when we would need to empty our heads. We appointed a person for each corner of the cat, especially when we're pulling in and out of a tight area, so that people just automatically go to those corners and start using hand signals telling us which way to turn if we're getting too close. You can actually use the same method for anything you think is necessary, like a second captain to always keep their eye on the charts as we get into skinny water, or maybe a VHF captain to contact the bridge. This just frees up the skipper to really concentrate on handling the boat and steering the boat. But I thought that the food went really well. So far on every trip I've always been on, we always have too much food, but I think that's better than the other alternative. Good question, Mel.
Well,
Anybody else?
I wish I had had that coconut cashew curry,
Yeah,
chicken, whatever we call it.
yeah. And I don't know if everybody's just being kind, but I do enjoy that when we go out sailing. It's fun.
Oh, it's a
Brings back
great
a lot of
meal.
Good memories too. Thanks for bringing that up. And I know that I learned quite a few things from Ori too. He did a killer breakfast, which was on I think it was a Famous Dave's cornbread with jalapenos in them. He'd get a square of cornbread, and then he'd I think poach an egg or fry an egg, put it on that, and then salsa and peppers and cheese. Killer. Oh yeah. Or he makes killer guacamole. So we topped all that off with the guac.
Yes, he does. I do remember that.
Yeah, we weren't hurting. We had fun with food. That's the way it should be. Okay. What else? Can't think of any real tips or tricks. I learned to look at my ticket to see if I got, or we got preferred status or whatever they call it. And when we finally got through TSA, they said, you didn't have to go through here. You had preferred status tickets. So that might be another thing with Allegiant. As you get up there in years, maybe you qualify to not have to take your shoes off or your belt off or any of that other stuff. So that was nice. Yeah.
How did this area compare to other areas?
Yeah,
Did you like this sailing area?
I think I'd have to get used to it. All the other areas I've been in, for the most part, once you leave the dock, you're in deep water and you don't have to really worry about bumping into stuff. You always had to be on your toes in the ICW. But we never did run aground except for coming out of the marina. But it is skinny water. You have to be careful.
Yeah, did Chris share with you our adventure in the dinghy in Key West? Or
Yeah.
actually, well, off in the Keys. It was super skinny water.
Yeah. What happened?
Oh, well, he can tell it if he wants to. I didn't know if he shared it with you while you were there.
Wait, I don't know if I remember this.
The dinghy ride through the swamp that you were walking through.
Yeah, you've seen the movie The African Queen, right? Humphrey Bogart pulling the boat.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. we're doing that in 6 inches of water for about a
Oh.
mile
In,
Whoa.
in the pitch dark.
in the pitch dark, and you sink down into your, up to your knees in the mud, and
Really? No, thanks.
you go by the saltwater croc sign, and you're okay.
You're gonna have to repeat that one. I don't remember that. I want to hear more. Yeah, leeches and all. Mosquitoes.
Sure.
Oh. Okay.
This was a fine part of Florida, except that every other part of Florida I've been to, the weather was like 80 degrees.
Yeah.
This was 50, so I'm never going back there again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm-
was that did you check, like, was it the same story all over Florida, or was it particular to that side?
Yeah, they said that the gale force winds were on the west side. I didn't pay attention to anything else, just whatever they said, the west side of Florida. But although they did warn of between 60 and 70 mile an hour winds, I'm sure we never got close to that. But it was cold, it was blowy. But the boat handled it just fine. We weren't able to sail back to Vinoy just because the wind was pretty much on our nose.
Yeah, I think it was probably just a fluke, because that's usually a great warm area.
Yeah, well, that's what we were kind of hoping on. When we first got there, I thought, man, we're blessed. This is going to be great, because it was quite nice. But then it just kept getting a little colder and colder. Yeah. But the second blanket, I think, did the trick. You know, cold. And we figured out how to run the heater in this Fontaine Peugeot. And that worked nice too. So it's just familiarization, I guess. If I was a little bit more familiar with stuff, I think it could have been a little more comfortable. But I liked it. It's beautiful down there. It was exciting. We would have liked to have gone down to Sarasota and explored the Kadzan Ringling mansion. I think that would have been fun for all of us as a crew to do that. Louise and I went down after, because we had one day before Allegiance would fly back direct. It's a beautiful state, got a lot going for it.
So Todd, when is the busy season? I don't know. I'm not familiar with how that works down there. Were you there when there was a lot of people, or were you in the off season?
I don't, Chris, maybe you can speak to that. I don't know if you are familiar with high season, low season. I wasn't impressed that this was high season. But you'd think that Florida would attract all the snowbirds, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, they're balancing the hurricane season with
That too.
all
Yeah.
that. But honestly, there's not that much charter business going on in Florida that I can tell.
Huh.
I mean, there are a bunch of companies, but it's not like other places where they're just charter boats all over the place.
Okay.
You know, I mean, did
Yeah,
we
well,
see another one ever? I don't think we did when we were down the
No.
Cape. We didn't see any. So I don't know.
Well,
Lot
that
of water.
really confused me that all these places where we stopped had no provisions for a big cat, no slips, no transient slips. They seemed kind of like we were the odd man out, if you will. We probably were, because all the boats that I saw were Boston whalers with 3 or 4 or 5 or 100 outboards hanging off the engine, zipping around. I think that's where their money lies. It's not in charters. Okay. Any other questions, gang? Well, before we sign off, just we're trying to strong arm Chris into doing our next week's cottage meeting, and we don't necessarily have a topic, but I'm sure it's going to come out of his trip down south on chasing stars. It may be more pointed on different parts of a voyage like that. But we're going to let Chris work that out, and I'll get that out in a newsletter next Tuesday just to introduce the topic. And we look forward to meeting with you again. By the way, this is recorded, so you can access it, and we'll publish that however we do that in the newsletter. And we'll keep trudging along here. Okay. Good to see everybody. I guess we're checking out now.
Awesome.
Good night.
Thanks, Todd. Great
Thanks,
job.
Todd.
Take care.
Thanks, Todd. It was great.
You're welcome. Well, thank you.
Cheerio.
Okay. I don't see where to do anything. Here? No.
Is this the part where we all sit here and don't actually get off the meeting?
Don't click leave because we all want to see if
Yeah.
Todd
it usually
figures
does.
it out.
Oh, I see. Stop share. Okay, that's what I was looking for. I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe by next time I'll know. So I'm gonna hit stop share. You guys have a good night, and until we meet again.
It's still not going to end.
Hey,
it,
we're back.
But that was a good shot. I hung out to see it because I knew it wouldn't stop the meeting.
You knew that I couldn't stop this thing. Try this.